Sometimes the biggest revolutions start in the most unlikely places. Today, we're going to talk about a story that kicks off with a simple board game from the 1950s, but believe it or not, ends with the birth of modern sports analytics. This isn't just about dice and cardboard, not by a long shot. It's a story of pure obsession, of a community of fans who, decades before computers were in every home, decided they were going to try and reverse engineer reality itself. And it all started with a simple call to action.
So check this out. It all began with this mission, right here, printed in the pages of a fan newsletter called the APBA Journal. This wasn't some corporate memo or a press release, no way. This was basically a call to arms from one fan to, well, everyone else. And what was their goal? To decode the secret formulas of their favorite game and then just share that knowledge with everybody. I mean, it was an open source project before that was even really a thing.
Now, for anyone who hasn't played, let me just paint a quick picture. APBA Baseball is this remarkably detailed simulation. The whole point was to take the beautiful chaos of a real baseball season, all the stats, all the randomness, and distill it down into a set of cards and dice rolls that could perfectly replicate how a player actually performed. It was like a statistical model of the sport that you could hold right in your hands. And the heart of the whole game was the player card. Just look at this one for the Giants' legend Monty Irvin. At first glance, yeah, it's just a grid of numbers, but somehow packed within this little grid is the very essence of Monty Irvin's entire 1949 season. A roll of 11 is a home run. A 24 is a strikeout. For these fans, the cards weren't just game pieces. They were like these incredible artifacts that held a secret code.
And that, right there, is the central puzzle of our story today. How on earth do you do that? What were the secret formulas that could turn a real player's stats, their strikeouts, their home runs, all of it, into this very specific grid of 36 possible outcomes? The company guarded that secret like it was the crown jewels. But the fans, well, they were determined to crack the code.
So with the company keeping its secrets locked up tight, it was up to the players themselves to figure it out. And we're not talking about professional mathematicians or programmers here. These were just ordinary fans armed with not much more than a deep passion for the game and a serious nagging curiosity. They became a community of code breakers.
Their motivation was actually pretty simple. The APBA company only put out a limited number of teams each year. But what if you wanted to play with some obscure team from the 1915 Federal League? Or what if you wanted to add the bench players to your 1961 Yankees? The only way to do that was to make the cards yourself. And to do that, you needed the formula.
This quote really captures a huge turning point. For years, these fans were just working by themselves, in this kind of hidden network of what one guy called illicit card makers. But then, a fan named Ron Murrah goes and publishes a how-to article in the official APBA Journal, and bam! Suddenly the whole project wasn't underground anymore. It became this public, collaborative thing.
And you can literally see how their whole effort evolved over time. It started with just simple one-ads, connecting a few fans here and there. That grew into articles sharing their early discoveries. And before long, the journal was just filled with letters from people debating the tiny details of the formulas. By the 1980s, they had collectively built an entire how-to guide spread across dozens of articles, all without any central boss or anything.
And you have to remember, this was the 1970s. Their tools were completely analog. We're talking slide rules and those really early clunky calculators. Their main database was this massive book, the Macmillan Baseball Encyclopedia. And if they needed some really obscure stat, they'd spend hours at the library scrolling through microfilm of old newspapers. This was data science done the hard way.
Okay, so how did they actually do it? How did they take a real player's season and translate it onto one of these cards? Let's take a look at the anatomy of their process.
They broke it down, piece by piece. Let's take strikeouts, for example. They figured out that the number of times a player struck out divided by their at-bats was the key. They'd multiply that by something they called a working number, which is basically just the number of available result slots on the card, and that gave them a target value. Then, they'd look at this chart they'd painstakingly built by analyzing hundreds of official cards to see exactly how many 13s, the strikeout number, to put on the card.
And they did this for absolutely everything. Check out this chart they built for grounding into double plays. It's the exact same logic. You calculate a target value from real-life stats, and the chart tells you precisely how many 24s go on the card. It was this beautiful, systematic process of turning raw data into game mechanics. Pure logic. Or was it? Because as they dug deeper and deeper, they found something they totally didn't expect. It wasn't all just pure math. There was a ghost in the machine, a human element that you could almost call the
the art of the game. I mean, this quote from their own manual really says it all. After all that incredibly precise math, they found out that some of the most important ratings in the game, like fielding, weren't based on a strict formula at all. They were subjective, based on things like reputation and opinion. And they started to find this human judgment everywhere. Like rookies almost never got good fielding ratings, no matter what their stats said. Pitcher grades would get tweaked up or down just to make sure a team felt right. And figuring out a player's hit and run ability, well, as they wrote themselves, it was anybody's guess. So they weren't just decoding a formula. They were reverse engineering a craftsman's intuition.
But that didn't stop them from trying to quantify everything they possibly could, and their crowning achievement, their absolute Mount Everest of code breaking, was the formula they figured out for grading pitchers.
Just look at this thing. Multiply the natural log, yes. I love that the author actually added the yes in parentheses, like even he couldn't believe what he'd uncovered. This is a formula with 7-digit decimal points that they worked out using slide rules and early calculators. The level of dedication here is just staggering.
Feeling a little lost right now? Don't worry, you're not alone. You're not really supposed to understand the math. The crucial point isn't what the formula is, it's what it represents. This is hundreds, maybe thousands of hours of collaborative, painstaking detective work by a group of people who simply loved a game so much they just had to know how it worked.
So why does this story about a niche board game hobby from 50 years ago matter today? Well, because what these fans were doing, in their basements and through their little newsletters, had a name they didn't even know yet. They were basically inventing sports analytics.
Right. So today we call this field sabermetrics. You've probably heard the term. It was famously brought into the mainstream by Bill James and the whole Moneyball phenomenon. It's this idea that you can use objective data to find hidden value and get a competitive edge in sports. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry now.
And this is where the connection becomes crystal clear. Just look at this comparison. Okay, yeah, the tools are way different, slide rules versus AI models, and the medium is different, print journals versus APIs. But the fundamental impulse, the core idea is exactly the same, using statistics to understand the hidden structure of the game.
And that's really the big takeaway here. Decades before teams were paying millions of dollars for data scientists, this grassroots community of APBA fans was doing the exact same kind of work. Not for money, not for a competitive edge, but just for the love of the game and the pure satisfaction of cracking the code. They were the original data scientists of baseball.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If a bunch of fans with slide rules and encyclopedias could accidentally lay the groundwork for a revolution in sports, what hidden communities are out there right now, on Discord servers or forums, using today's insane tools to explore their own passions? What foundations for the next big thing are they building, right now, just for the love of it?